Order a step aside, sir. We've got real customers waiting. Wanted in. This isn't a shelter. Some people just don't fit the brand.
I created these. You created these?
No, Grant took it.
My name is Terrence Wade. I built this company. Hoodie guy doesn't fit. That was me. I can explain.
Keep watching the story and follow Mr. Marcus Stories for more powerful moments.
Did you see that man's boots? Kayla Pierce didn't bother lowering her voice. She said it loud enough for the whole line to hear. Loud enough that the man at the counter felt it land on the back of his neck like a slap. Chin up, lips curled. Order a step aside, sir. We've got real customers waiting. A plain drip coffee, please. Large. Kayla glanced at Madison Cole, who was steaming milk 3 feet away and didn't even look up. You want room for cream, or should I just pour it in a to-go cup so you can drink it on the sidewalk? Madison laughed at that, a short, ugly little laugh, the kind that isn't really about anything funny. 6 people stood behind him in that line. Not one of them said a word. The man paid in cash, counted out exact change from a worn leather wallet, and carried his coffee to the corner table by the window, the one with the best light in the whole shop. He sat down, wrapped both hands around the cup, and took his first sip. He didn't flinch at what they'd already said to his face. He'd spent 51 years hearing worse in rooms just like this one. He froze at what they said next. 4 minutes later, when they thought the sound of the espresso machine was covering their voices. Terrence Wade built Golden Ember coffee out of a fold-up card table and a second-hand percolator. Not a figure of speech. An actual card table set up on the sidewalk outside a barber shop on North 27th Street in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In the spring, he turned 26. Nobody in that neighborhood had a coffee shop worth walking to back then. The nearest one was 2 bus transfers away, and it wasn't built with people like Terrence in mind. He didn't have investors. He had $412, a used espresso machine bought off a diner that was closing, and a stubbornness his mother used to call bullheaded. Usually right before she handed him rent money, he swore he'd pay back. He paid it back, every dollar of it, eventually. With interest, he insisted on adding himself. One card table became a storefront on Fond du Lac Avenue. One storefront became 6. 6 became 38, spread now across Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota, a regional chain known for its slow sword single origin, and a motto stenciled in gold above every register. Every seat is yours. Terrence wrote that line the year he opened his first real store, thinking of his mother, who used to save up to take him to the diner downtown on his birthday, where the hostess always sat them at the 2 top wedged against the kitchen doors, no matter how empty the dining room was. He promised himself that if he ever built something of his own, nobody would ever get the kitchen door table again. Now he worked out of a corner office on the 11th floor of a building on Wisconsin Avenue, glass on 2 sides, a view of the lake if you stood at the right angle. A photograph of the original card table hung behind his desk, curling slightly at the corners. The wood in the picture still stained dark from spilled espresso. He hadn't pulled a shot behind a counter in almost 4 years. Revenue was up 9%. 2 new locations were opening in Rockford and Duluth before Thanksgiving. The board loved him. The regional managers sent him spreadsheets full of numbers that all pointed in the right direction. Then, on a Tuesday morning at 9:14 a.m., his assistant, Renee Ford, walked into his office and set a manila folder on his desk without a word. "You need to read this before your 10 o'clock, she said. Inside were 27 printed customer reviews, all for the flagship location on North 27th Street, the original store, the one he'd built with his mother's rent money before a single bank ever said yes to him. Terrence read the first 3 and felt something drop low in his stomach. The girl at the counter looked at me like I'd walked in off the street to rob the place. I'm 61 years old, and I've been coming here since it opened. Hostile. Humiliating, never going back. I left my coffee on the table. Didn't even want it anymore after the way they treated the man in front of me. 27 reviews. 19 of them mentioned the exact same thing, and it wasn't the coffee. It was the staff, and the particular way certain customers got treated differently than others. The words repeated like a drumbeat across review after review. Dismissed, ignored, humiliated. He pulled up the internal customer satisfaction board. The flagship store, out of 38 locations, ranked dead last. The first store he'd ever built was now the worst one he owned. He called the store manager, a man named Grant Wexler, who'd been there 2 years, and looked good on every performance report that crossed Terrence's desk. "Grant, I'm looking at the review numbers for your store. Walk me through it." Grant's voice came back smooth first, the voice of a man who'd practiced this answer before the question was ever asked. "Mr. Wade, with respect, people leave 1-star reviews over free refills. It's noise. My numbers are strong. We're hitting every sales target this quarter. Your satisfaction score is the lowest in the company, Grant." "Satisfaction surveys are subjective, sir. We can't control how people choose to feel." Terrence thanked him for his time and hung up. He sat with the phone in his hand for a long moment after the call ended, the kind of stillness that settles over a man when he already suspects the answer to a question he hasn't asked yet. That night he drove to the flagship alone and parked across the street with the engine off. Through the front glass he watched 2 young women behind the counter. One wiped down the espresso machine with slow, distracted strokes. The other leaned against the register, scrolling her phone. A man in paint-stained coveralls walked in. Neither of them looked up. He stood at the counter for nearly a full minute before either cashier acknowledged he existed. 38 stores, 600 employees, and the one location that was supposed to represent everything he'd built his name on was rotting quietly from the inside, 1 bad hour at a time. He pulled the staff schedule up on his phone. 2 names appeared on nearly every peak shift, week after week: Kayla Pierce and Madison Cole. A third name caught his eye for a different reason entirely. Camila Reyes was scheduled almost exclusively for the 5:00 a.m. openings and the 9:30 p.m. closes every single week, the 2 shifts nobody wanted. He sat there a long time before he started the engine. Something was badly wrong inside the house he'd built with his own hands, and he intended to find out exactly what it was. The next morning, Terrence Wade did something he hadn't done in years. He put on a gray hooded sweatshirt from the back of his closet, a pair of worn jeans, and boots that had seen better decades. He left his watch on the bathroom counter. He didn't call a car. He took the number 30 bus, 14 stops, and walked 2 blocks to the Golden Ember Flash, the store where he'd once poured the very first cup himself and handed it to a stranger for free, just to watch her face when she tasted it. The bell above the door chimed. Nobody looked up. Kayla Pierce stood behind the register, phone in one hand, the other resting flat on the counter like she was guarding it. Madison Cole stood at the espresso machine, scrolling through something on her screen. A clean towel draped over her shoulder that she clearly hadn't touched all morning. Terrence stepped up to the counter and waited. 5 seconds, 10, 15. A young couple walked in behind him, both dressed like they'd come from a downtown office. Kayla's head snapped up instantly, a bright smile spreading across her face. "Hey, welcome in. What can I get started for you too?" She took their order around him entirely, as though he were a support beam holding up the ceiling, rather than a man standing at her register. He cleared his throat. "Excuse me, I'd like to order." Kayla's eyes traveled from his hood to his jeans, to his boots, slow and deliberate, the way a person says something they've already decided to throw out. "What do you want?" It wasn't a question, it was a verdict. "A large drip coffee, please, and a slice of the banana bread." Kayla turned toward Madison without lowering her voice at all. "He wants banana bread." Madison snorted without looking away from her phone. Kayla scribbled 2 letters on the cup, BC, and didn't ask his name. He didn't need to ask what it stood for. He already knew. He paid in cash. Kayla took the bills with 2 fingers, the way you'd lift something out of a puddle, and dropped his change onto the counter, instead of into his hand. 3 coins rolled off the edge. He bent down and picked them up one at a time. He carried his coffee and the banana bread to the corner table with the good light, the one that had always been his favorite, even before he owned the building it sat inside of. He sat down and took a bite of the bread. It was excellent, easily the best thing on the menu, and he hadn't even known it existed until that moment. That's when he heard it. Madison leaned across the register toward Kayla, not bothering to lower her voice, as if he weren't even worth the effort of being quiet. Did you see him picking those coins up off the floor? That was actually painful to watch. Kayla laughed. I don't know why people like that even come in here. This isn't a shelter. He's going to sit there all morning, taking up a table for 1 coffee and 0 tip. They always do. At least he came alone. Last week, that woman brought her 3 kids in here, running around like it was a playground. I told Grant we need to start filtering better, or this place is going to look like a bus station. Madison nodded. For real, we got to protect the vibe. Some people just don't fit the brand. Terrence set the banana bread down slowly. His hands stayed steady, his jaw did not. He pulled out his phone, opened a blank note, and typed a single word: rot. He stayed for another 40 minutes, watching. He watched Kayla greet every young, well-dressed customer with a warm "Hey, babe," and hand an older black man his drink without a word or a glance. He watched Madison turn away from an elderly woman mid-sentence to take a photo of her own latte art. He finished his coffee, left the empty cup on the table, and walked out. Nobody said goodbye. Nobody noticed he'd left at all. He stood on the sidewalk outside his own store, under his own motto stenciled in gold above the door, "Every seat is," and called his vice president of operations. Renee, clear my calendar for next week. All of it. Terrence, you've got the investor lunch Thursday. All of it. I'm going back in. Not as the owner, as nobody. And I need you to make sure not one single person in that building knows my name. That night, he didn't sleep. He replayed the 2-finger bill grab. The coins dropped instead of handed over. The letters BC scrawled on a paper cup. The word filtering, the laughter that hadn't been trying to sound like laughter at all. It had been trying to sound like a wall. He'd spent most of his life on the other side of walls exactly like that one. He'd believed, foolishly it turned out, that he'd built something without them. At 6 the next morning, he called Renee back. I need a cover, a new transfer hire from the Rockford location. Put a name in the system. Henry Odom. Renee exhaled slowly on the other end of the line. Terrence, I can pull the security footage and have HR fire both of them by Friday. Done and done. If I fire 2 cashiers, I fix 1 register. I need to know if the whole house is sick. How long do you need? 4 days. And if somebody recognizes you? Terrence almost laughed. I just spent 40 minutes in that store today. The woman at the register told me I don't fit the brand. Nobody in that building has ever once looked at the company's about page. He spent the next 2 hours getting ready. He trimmed his beard down unevenly, the way a man looks when he doesn't own a mirror worth trusting. He drove to a thrift store and bought a gray polo shirt, 2 sizes too big, and a pair of scuffed brown work boots. Then he sat down and read the entire 60-page employee handbook for the first time in over 2 years. What he found there made him set the binder down and stare at the wall for a while. The customer service protocol was detailed and specific. Greeting standards, service timelines, complaint escalation steps, all written out in careful language. But there was no audit system behind any of it, no anonymous reporting line, no enforcement mechanism whatsoever. The entire protocol rested on a single fragile assumption that people would simply choose to follow it because it was the right thing to do. His mother used to say good intentions don't survive bad management. She was right about most things, She'd been right about this, too. He pulled up the flagship's shift schedule one more time. Kayla and Madison worked every single peak shift, Tuesday through Saturday, 10 in the morning until 6 at night. The golden hours, when tips ran heaviest and foot traffic ran highest. Camila Reyes worked 5 in the morning until 8, then 9 at night until close, every week, for 4 straight months. No peak hours, no visibility, no tips worth counting. 4 months of dead zone shifts wasn't bad luck. That was a pattern with a name on it. He put on the gray polo and laced up the scuffed boots. The man staring back at him in the bathroom mirror didn't look like the founder of a 38-store company. He looked like exactly the kind of man Kayla Pierce had already decided didn't fit the brand. Good, he thought. That's exactly who I need to be. He parked in the alley behind the store the next morning. The employee entrance was a narrow metal door with chipped paint and no camera anywhere near it, a striking contrast to the polished, Instagram-ready storefront 20 feet away. That gap told him everything he needed to know about where the company's attention had actually gone over the last few years. The break room smelled like scorched coffee grounds and old carpet. A corkboard in the corner was cluttered with outdated shift notices. On a shelf between a stack of paper napkins and a bottle of hand sanitizer sat a small ceramic tip jar, hand-painted with sunflowers on one side and the Golden Ember logo carefully lettered on the other. It was nearly empty. Taped to the front was a sticky note in loopy handwriting. All tips go through Kayla first. See her before adding anything. He photographed the note. He photographed the jar. He set it back down gently, exactly where he'd found it. Then he clocked in under the name Henry Odom and walked onto the floor. Day 1, morning shift. He was assigned to shadow the opening crew, led by a woman named Camila Reyes, 29 years old, Latina. Her hair pulled back tight, her apron already stained by 5:15 in the morning. She moved behind the counter the way a musician moves on stage. No wasted motion, every step already decided in advance. Lids are under the second sink, not the first, she said without turning around. First sink sanitizer. Mix those up, and you'll be tasting bleach in your coffee for a week. At 6:41 that morning, an elderly black man walked through the door, moving slowly in a wool coat too heavy for the season. Camila's whole face changed. Otis, oat milk cortado extra warm. Sit down, I'll bring it over. Otis Freeman smiled like she'd handed him something he thought he'd lost for good. You remember? Every single day for 3 years, she said, and carried the drink to his table with both hands. You're the only reason I still come here, Otis told her. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes, and she went straight back to work. Terrence found a gap between customers. How long have you worked here? 4 years. You like it? Her hands never stopped moving. I like the coffee, she said, and said nothing else. That pause told him more than any customer review ever could have. At 10 o'clock, the shift changed, and the air in the room tightened like someone had turned a dial. Camila went quiet and slipped to the back to restock shelves that didn't need restocking. Kayla didn't greet her. Did you pre-stock the oat milk? I'm not doing it again. Camila answered, it's done. It better be. A young, well-dressed couple walked in, and Kayla lit up instantly. Hey, guys. Have you tried the maple pecan cortado yet? Honestly, the best thing we've ever put on the menu. Terrence blinked. That drink was Golden Ember's third best-selling item last quarter, and he had no idea until that moment who had actually invented it. A middle-aged woman in a cleaning company uniform stepped up next. Kayla's smile disappeared instantly. What do you want? The drink was made in total silence and set down without a name on the cup, without a single word of thanks. Terrence opened the register drawer later to break a large bill and found a folded index card wedged between the receipt paper and the bill tray. 2 columns, one marked with hearts, one marked with X's. Day 2. He waited until Kayla went on break and pulled the card out to read it properly. Under hearts, tech guy Jake always tips $5. Instagram girl tags us for a free shot. Blonde couple, good vibe. Under X's. Olds guy, Joe's, sits, no tip. Woman with the 3 kids, messy, don't encourage. Hoodie guy, doesn't fit. Hoodie guy. That was him. They'd already written him down. On the back, in Kayla's handwriting, if they're not brand fit, slow the service down, they'll leave on their own. Don't make a scene. Just make it clear. He set the card back exactly where he'd found it. His hand stayed steady. His jaw did not. This wasn't 2 young women having a bad week. This was a system, built quietly, running exactly as designed. Day 2, break room. Camila pulled out a battered spiral notebook during her afternoon break and flipped through it absent-mindedly. Pages of recipe notes, seasonal drink ideas, little margin notes like needs more cinnamon and try it with brown sugar syrup instead. You created these? She nodded. Gave the maple pecan one to Grant last fall. He said he'd submit it up through regional. It went on the menu 2 months later. Sold like crazy. Your name on it anywhere? No. Grant listed it as his own initiative. She kept flipping. Blackberry cold brew, holiday spice latte, cinnamon pear muffin. All hers. All credited to somebody else. I stopped putting my name on them a while back, she said, closing the notebook. What's even the point? Terrence typed a note under the table where nobody could see his phone. Camila Reyes. 4 recipes confirmed. 0 credit. 0 raise. Day 3, and Terrence smelled Grant Wexler before he ever saw him. Cologne, sharp and far too much of it. The whole store seemed to stiffen. The moment he walked through the door, like he owned the place, which ironically, the actual owner did. Standing 3 feet away in a gray polo shirt nobody recognized. Grant high-fived Kayla on his way past. Superstar, place looks great. He walked right past Camilla without a glance, though she was standing only 6 feet away restocking cups. He spotted Terrence next. New guy? Just stick close to Kayla. She's the heartbeat of this store. Camila's hands never stopped moving. She'd heard some version of that sentence before, more times than she probably cared to count. Whose idea was the maple pecan cortado? Terrence asked. Grant grinned, proud of himself. That one's mine. Regional initiative, 3rd quarter of last year. Camila's hands paused for exactly 1 second. A cup tipped sideways. She caught it before it fell and kept working. Day 3, end of shift tip count. Terrence offered to help. Kayla shut it down instantly. I handle the tips. Store policy's an even split, right? Policy's policy, but real life is real life. Front of house earns the tips, back of house gets a support share. He checked the point of sale system later, when Kayla stepped away. Kayla and Madison combined 81% of every dollar in tips. Camila and 2 others, 19% for the same number of hours worked. He photographed the screen. Day 4, and a woman walked in around 2 in the afternoon wearing hospital scrubs and a lanyard, mid-50s black, tired around the eyes in the specific way that comes from a long shift. She ordered a vanilla latte and a muffin. Kayla served her exactly the way she served everyone from the X column. Flat voice, no eye contact, wrong name written on the cup. My name is Denise, not D, she said quietly. Kayla didn't look up. Same difference. Denise Carter took her coffee, sat down, took 1 sip, and stood back up without finishing it. Terrence followed her outside. She sat on the bench in front of the store, staring down at the cup in her hands. Are you all right? She looked up at him, exhausted in a way that clearly ran far deeper than one bad afternoon. I just wanted a decent cup of coffee in a nice place. That's all I wanted. You deserve exactly that, he told her, and meant it more than she could have known. She almost smiled, but didn't quite get there. She dropped the cup in the trash can and walked off down the block. Terrence sat on that bench a long time afterward. Then he texted Renee. It's worse than I thought. 1 more day, then legal, then HR, then the conference room. Every employee present Friday morning. Her reply came back 4 seconds later. What are you going to do? My job, he wrote back. Day 5, Thursday, before sunrise. He arrived at 4:30, in the morning, a full hour before the store even opened, and let himself into the cramped, windowless manager's office using a corporate login Renee had quietly routed through an internal audit flag the night before. No alerts, no fingerprints, just access. The chair squeaked when he sat down. The desk smelled like burnt coffee and old dust. He pulled 12 months of tip distribution records into a spreadsheet on his phone. Kayla and Madison's combined weekly average, $418. The company-wide average for a two-person front of house split across all 38 stores, $96. Not double, not a little higher. More than 4 times the average. Camille's weekly tip share, meanwhile, had fallen every single month for 9 straight months, from $58 a week down to 9. Next, he pulled Grant's quarterly regional innovation reports. 4 new menu items submitted over 14 months, every single one credited to Grant as the originator. He lined them up against the photographs he'd taken of Camila's notebook. Maple pecan cortado. Her notebook entry predated his submission by 2 months. Blackberry cold brew, 2 months. Holiday spice latte, 2 months. Cinnamon pear muffin, 2 months. The same gap every single time. Long enough to look independent. Short enough to ride the timing of her own creativity without anyone noticing. He opened the internal HR complaint log next. 3 formal complaints filed by Camila Reyes over 18 months. 1 on scheduling fairness. Reviewed, no adjustment needed. Current scheduling reflects operational needs. Signed Grant Wexler. 1 on tip distribution. Reviewed, tip policy is store-level discretion. No action required. Signed Grant Wexler. 1 on recipe credit. Reviewed, menu development is a regional function. No further action. Signed Grant Wexler. 3 complaints. 3 dismissals. The same signature every time, at the bottom of every dead end. He opened 1 final file. Kayla's employee record. Emergency contact field. Name. Grant Wexler. Relationship. Uncle. Terrence exhaled slowly the way a man breathes when the last piece of something ugly finally clicks into place. Grant shielded Kayla. Kayla ran the floor exactly the way she wanted. Madison followed Kayla's lead. Camila filed complaints and Grant buried every single one of them, because the person she was complaining about was family. A closed loop. A machine built entirely to protect itself. He closed the laptop and walked to the break room. The little ceramic tip jar was still sitting on its shelf. He turned it over. On the bottom, in small, careful handwriting, faded but still legible, for the team, C. Our Camila had painted that jar herself. For a team that had emptied it, shelved it, and taped a note to it, directing every tip through the very person stealing them. He set it back down gently, like it was evidence. Because it was. He called Renee. Are they confirmed for tomorrow? Confirmed. Conference rooms booked. Every flagship employee's on the schedule for 8 a.m. One more thing. I want the screen set up. I'm going to show them something. What are you going to show them? The truth, he said, and hung up. Friday morning, 8 a.m. The store stayed closed to customers. 14 folding chairs sat in rows inside the cramped conference room behind the sales floor. Fluorescent lights humming faintly overhead, the espresso machine ticking through the wall. Kayla sat in the second row, annoyed at being pulled in for a mandatory meeting. Madison sat beside her, chewing gum, whispering something that made Kayla smirk. Grant sat in the front row, legs crossed, arms spread wide, across the empty chair beside him, cologne filling the room before he'd said a single word. Camila sat in the back row, hands folded, shoulders forward, expecting nothing, because nothing was what this company had handed her for 4 years running. At 8:02, the door opened. Terrence walked in wearing the same gray polo, the same scuffed boots, no notes, no laptop, nothing but himself. Kayla squinted. Something flickered behind her eyes. Recognition trying to fight its way up through disbelief. Madison's gum stopped moving mid-chew. Terrence let the silence sit for 7 full seconds before he spoke. 4 days ago, I walked into this store and ordered coffee, and a slice of banana bread. Two of the people behind that counter looked at a man in a hoodie and decided on the spot that he didn't belong. One of them called me hoodie guy on an index card and wrote that I don't fit the brand. Kayla's smile froze somewhere between performance and panic. My name is Terrence Wade. I built this company. I welded together. No, I'll say it plain. I built this exact store with my mother's rent money 23 years ago. Although the color left Kayla's face at once, drained out through her cheeks and her ears like someone had pulled a plug somewhere underneath her. He held up the index card. This was inside the register drawer. Hearts for the customers you liked. X's for the ones you decided didn't fit. He read from it slowly. Old guy Otis just sits. Woman with the 3 kids, messy, don't encourage. Hoodie guy doesn't fit. That was me. He turned to the screen behind him and pulled up the tip distribution data, large enough for every chair in the room to read clearly. 12 months. Kayla and Madison, 81% of every dollar tipped. Camila and 2 others, 19% for 6 hours worked. Next slide. Grant's quarterly reports on the left. Photographs of Camila's handwritten notebook on the right. Dates circled in red. 4 recipes, every single one created by Camila Reyes. Every single one submitted to corporate under Grant Wexler's name. Every notebook date sitting 2 months ahead of his official submission. Grant's jaw tightened. His hand gripped the arm of his chair. I can explain. I'm not finished, Terrence said, and his voice didn't rise. It dropped instead, which was worse. Final slide, 3 complaint records, all filed by Camila, all marked resolved, no action required, all signed by the same name. He looked directly at Grant. The same Grant Wexler listed as Kayla Pierce's emergency contact. Relationship uncle. Grant's face didn't drain the way Kayla's had. It hardened instead, his eyes darting sideways, calculating, a man checking for exits instead of preparing to confess. Terrence turned to Camila. She sat exactly where they'd always put her, in the back row, at the back of the schedule, at the back of every line that mattered. Her hands stayed folded, but her spine had gone straight. Camila, you created the maple pecan cortado. You created the blackberry cold brew, the holiday spice latte, the cinnamon pepper muffin. The same bread I was eating the day your coworkers decided I didn't belong in this store. He let the silence hold a moment before continuing, his voice softer now by exactly 1 degree. I owe you an apology. Not for what they did to you, for not being here to see it happen, for sitting 11 floors up while it went on 14 feet from the register. That's on me. Camila's eyes went bright, though nothing spilled over. She nodded once, slow, not agreement, acknowledgement. It said, I always knew what I was worth. I was only ever waiting for someone else to see it, too. Terrence straightened and picked up 3 plain manila folders from the table beside him. Kayla, you're terminated, effective this morning. Not just for how you spoke to a customer, though that alone would be enough on its own. You're terminated for running a documented system of customer profiling, for diverting 81% of shared tips to yourself and 1 other employee, and for making this a hostile place to work for anyone who didn't look, talk, or dress the way you decided the brand should look. Kayla stared at the table, her fingers locked together, knuckles white. Nothing came out of her mouth at all. Madison, same terms. You co-maintained that list. You participated in the tip manipulation, and you stood behind that counter and called a paying customer a thief to his face because of the color of his skin. Madison's chin trembled. She took the folder without opening it, like she didn't know what else her hands were supposed to do. Grant, you're terminated for filing 4 false intellectual property claims against recipes that belong to Camila Reyes. You're terminated for burying 3 formal complaints that landed on your desk, complaints against your own niece that you signed off as resolved every single time. You're terminated for building a shield around discrimination inside a company whose entire foundation is that every seat belongs to everyone. Grant's nostrils flared. For a moment, it looked like he might try to argue his way out of it the way he'd argued Camilla's complaints, into a drawer for 18 months. Instead, he looked around the room and found every single pair of eyes already on him, unmoving. He picked up the folders, stood, and walked out without another word. His cologne lingered for another 30 seconds after the door clicked shut. Then that, too, was gone. Terrence turned to the 11 remaining employees. What happened in this store wasn't only about 3 people. It was about a system that let them operate. A system I either built badly or didn't build strong enough to protect. That changes as of today. He clicked to a new slide. 4 points, effective immediately, across all 38 Golden Ember locations. 1. Transparent digital tip pooling. Every employee sees every dollar in real time, split automatically by hours worked. No single person controls the jar anymore. 2. Recipe and innovation credit. Any employee who develops a menu item gets their name on the menu board, on the app, in the marketing, and a royalty share on sales for the first year, along with priority consideration for advancement. Ideas stay with the person who had them. 3. An independent reporting channel. Complaints no longer go through your regional manager. They go straight to a third-party HR office that reports directly to me. If your voice got buried before, it now has a direct line to the top. 4. Quarterly unannounced audits. Every 90 days, someone from corporate, me, Renee, a VP, someone you won't recognize, walks in as a customer, no warning given. We'll feel exactly what your customers feel. If it matches what we stand for, good. If it doesn't, we'll know and we'll act. He let the room sit with that for a moment before he turned back to Camila. Camila, I'm offering you the position of Regional Innovation Lead. You'll oversee seasonal menu development for all 38 stores. Every recipe you've already created gets your name on it retroactively, and your pay gets backdated to the date of your very first submission. He slid a thicker folder across the table. She stood and walked to the front, unhurried, the same economy of motion she used behind the counter. She opened it, an offer letter, a back pay calculation for 18 months of diverted tips, and a new name badge. Camila Reyes, Regional Innovation Lead. She ran her thumb across the badge slowly. The way you touch something you'd imagined 1,000 times and never quite believed you'd actually hold. Thank you, she said. 2 words. Quiet and steady, grateful, in the particular way a person is grateful when something stolen has finally been returned rather than freely given. Nobody clapped. Nobody needed to. The silence in that room said everything applause never could. She walked to the break room and came back 30 seconds later, carrying the ceramic tip jars, sunflower sars faded, initials still visible on the bottom. She set it down on the counter, in plain view of the front door, and peeled off the sticky note that read all tips go through Kayla first. She dropped it in the trash without looking at it twice. 3 months later, the Golden Ember flagship looked the same from the sidewalk. Same brick front, same gold lettering above the door. Inside, almost nothing was the same at all. A hand-lettered chalkboard now stood by the entrance, updated weekly in Camila's own handwriting. This season's menu, created by our team. 4 drinks, 4 names beside them, no corporate codes. Maple Pecan Cortado, Camila Reyes, Milwaukee flagship. Winter Cinnamon Cold Brew, Marcus Boone, Rockford. Honey Lavender Latte, Jasmine Foster, Duluth. Summer Peach Iced Tea, Camila Reyes, Milwaukee flagship. 2 of the 4 hers. Nobody had to take them from her anymore. Denise Carter worked the front register now, hired after Terrence, tracked her down through the customer feedback form. Nobody had ever answered. She greeted every single customer with full eye contact, their real name written on the cup, the drink handed over with both hands, exactly the way Camila had taught the new hires. Otis Freeman came back too. He'd nearly stopped coming after Kayla started slow walking his order, hoping he'd simply give up and go elsewhere. One Tuesday morning at 6:45, a new barista looked up before he'd even reached the counter. Oat milk cortado, extra warm. You're Otis, right? How'd you know my name? Camila told us who our VIPs are. You're at the top of the list. Otis laughed, short and surprised, the sound of a man remembering what it felt like to be expected somewhere. When he left that morning, he dropped a $5 bill into the newly repainted sunflower jars and tapped the rim twice on his way out. The way you knock twice on a door you're glad is finally open. Terrence visited the flagship once a month now, always through the front door, always as a customer first. On one visit, he noticed something new hanging beside the chalkboard. A framed black and white photograph of a young man standing next to a folding card table, grinning like he'd just built something that mattered. A small plaque underneath read, "Every seat is yours. Terrence Wade, founder." "Who put that up?" he asked Camila. She shrugged, the same shrug she'd given him a dozen times before, lighter now than it used to be. The team did. They thought customers should know where this place actually came from. He ordered banana bread and sat down at the corner table with the good light. Denise handed him his coffee with both hands. Otis sat at the window seat that had once had an X drawn next to his name. Terrence took a bite of the bread. This time, he finished it. If you've ever walked into a place and been treated like you didn't belong there, even though you had every right to be, tell us about it in the comments below. And if you want to see what happens the next time a boss walks back through his own front door as a stranger, make sure you're subscribed, because there's another one coming. Camila spent 4 years building recipes worth real money and never once saw her name on the menu. She filed 3 complaints that died on the desk of the man who was supposed to protect her. None of it broke her. They took her tips, buried her name, and parked her on the 2 shifts nobody else wanted because a schedule was the only power they ever actually had over her. The moment somebody finally actually looked, the whole thing came apart by morning. You can bury the truth for a while. You cannot kill it. So sit with this for a second. When was the last time somebody decided who you were before you'd even opened your mouth to speak? And the harder question, have you ever been one of those 6 people standing in line who saw everything happening and said absolutely nothing? Tell us your story in the comments. If this one hit you, hit like so, see it. And subscribe, because next time, the boss finds something nobody was ready for. Every seat is yours. Don't ever let anyone be the one to take it away. Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and educational purposes only. All characters, names, businesses, and events depicted are entirely fictional and do not represent any real person, living or dead, or any actual establishment. Any resemblance to real persons, organizations, or events is purely coincidental. This content is intended to explore themes of human dignity, workplace ethics, and social justice through narrative storytelling. It does not make factual claims about any individual, company, or institution.